Welcome to China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. Our top story. President Trump told fellow Americans that they would feel a little pain after tariffs take effect.
We may have short-term some little pain, and people understand that. But long-term, the United States has been ripped off by virtually every country in the world.
The FDA sounding the alarm over a type of patient monitor made in China. The catch: malicious actors could remotely control the device, which is used to track a patient's vital signs. The U.S. charging a former advisor to the Federal Reserve for allegedly spying for China. Authorities say he stole trade secrets from the agency and gave them to Beijing. And Panama is making concessions after top diplomat Marco Rubio laid out two options for the country: end Chinese influence over the canal or face U.S. action. More on what Panama has agreed to. Before we dive into today's top story, we'd like to share an important update. You can now catch China in Focus on Beijing World every Tuesday instead of YouTube. We'll publish the link in the description box down below at that time, or you can search China in Focus at beijingworld.com. President Trump said Americans would feel a little pain as his sweeping tariffs hit goods from Canada, Mexico, and China. Trump signed the directive on Saturday, and the tariffs are scheduled to take effect Tuesday. They're aimed at cracking down on illegal immigration and the flow of fentanyl entering the U.S. from these countries. Here's the president speaking to reporters in Maryland on Sunday.
We may have short-term some little pain, and people understand that. But long-term, the United States has been ripped off by virtually every country in the world. We have deficits with almost every country. Not every country, but almost. And we're going to change it. It's been unfair. That's why
President Trump said he is slated to change America's deficit situation with almost every single U.S. trade partner. The president said U.S. deficits are what has led the federal debt to surpass $36 trillion. Vice President J.D. Vance was asked whether the White House is expecting retaliation from other countries over the tariffs. Here's what Vance said during a Sunday interview with Fox News. Watch.
We'll see what happens, but I think, unfortunately, the retaliation has already happened. The problem with this whole idea that they're going to retaliate is they have already been taking advantage of America for decades. The retaliation is Donald Trump saying no more. We're not going to be taken advantage of anymore, and I think it's important the president is doing what he's doing. If they want to be a better partner to us, the time starts now. We know the Chinese, of course, have stolen American manufacturing jobs for 30, 40 years, and also that they facilitated the trafficking of illegal fentanyl into Mexico, where the drug cartels then bring it into our country. But the message from President Trump to the entire world is very clear. We are done being taken advantage of, and we have a president who looks out for the interests of American citizens.
The situation is fast developing after Trump announced his tariff plans. On Monday afternoon, Trump told reporters that he expects to speak with Chinese Communist Party head Xi Jinping soon. Trump added that his tariff threats against China were, quote, an opening salvo. The same day, Trump agreed to postpone the tariffs on Mexico for 1 month. That's after Mexican President Sheinbaum promised to immediately send 10,000 troops to the borders between the U.S. and Mexico to crack down on drug trafficking and illegal immigrants. What's more, Trump spoke on the phone with Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau after the call with Mexico. Here's what they discussed. According to what Trudeau shared on social media, the U.S. will pause its proposed tariffs for 1 month. In return, Canada pledged to spend $1.3 billion and send 10,000 personnel to help enhance border security. On top of that, Trudeau said he already signed an intelligence directive targeting fentanyl, organized crime, and money laundering tied to the U.S.-Canada border. Canada will also appoint a fentanyl czar and launch a joint task force with the U.S. to fight those issues. Trudeau agreed to authorize $200 million to fund those plans. Trump originally said on Saturday that there would be 25% tariffs on both Canada and Mexico. He also announced an additional 10% tariff on China, which adds on to the levies already imposed on Chinese imports. On Sunday, China's Commerce Ministry vowed to challenge Trump's tariffs at the World Trade Organization. That was before Xi agreed to talk to Trump over the phone. It's worth noting that the WTO has not been functioning since 2019. Its lack of support from Washington has kept its dispute settlement system effectively frozen since then. The stock market fell on Monday, but recovered some of its losses after Trump delayed tariffs on Mexico. The Dow was down 0.35% and the S&P 500 fell 0.7%. The Nasdaq fell 1.2%. President Trump's tariffs have sparked controversy and widespread debate. He said he's using tariffs to cut off the flow of fentanyl into the U.S. How effective is the approach? NTD's Kerry Dunst spoke to Anders Core for his take. He's the publisher of the Journal of Political Risk and principal at Core Analytics.
Good morning. So Trump has signaled the tariffs on these three countries are primarily targeting their part in the U.S. fentanyl crisis, which is the leading cause of death in the U.S. for ages 18 to 45, as well as illegal immigration and the trade imbalance. How effective do you think this approach is?
It's potentially effective. I mean, what Trump is really doing here is breaking the mold in terms of what tariffs have been used for in the past. In the past, they've been used, in the United States, we know how he's used them, but normally how they're used is if there's dumping or something, there'd be retaliatory tariffs, and that's kind of accepted in the international community. But what Trump is doing is addressing non-economic issues like fentanyl and immigration with tariffs. And of course, what's nice about it is that he's using the power of the American economy. I mean, what he said is that we have this huge economy, and we have to use the power of that economy and the access to that economy as a form of leverage with countries for a whole range of issues.
Yes, using this economic might in a new way. Very interesting. Now, let's zoom in on China. Can you refresh our audience on the tariffs Trump implemented in his first term, where they went during the Biden administration, and what the impact of this additional 10% will be?
Very basically, and this is a bit of a simplification, Trump imposed 25% tariffs on China in his first administration. When Biden came in, he kept the 25%. And then, of course, Trump campaigned on raising those tariffs to as much as 60% on China. Now, what he's done is he's started that process by adding a 10% tariff. So what a lot of the media isn't saying is that the 10% tariffs on China is in addition to the 25% that's already there. So the effective rate is 35% on China compared to the lower rates for Canada and Mexico of 25%. They're not saying that. They should be acknowledging that fairly, but really they're not doing so.
And unlike Canada and Mexico, who immediately responded with matching tariffs while also requesting dialogue, and I believe Trump, didn't take their calls over the weekend, but now he's signaling he will. So far, it seems like mostly silence from Beijing. Why is that, and how do you expect Beijing to respond?
Beijing has been through this, and I think they realized that retaliatory tariffs really don't work because China was selling a lot more stuff to us, and they still are, than we sell to them. So at the end of the day, this tariff war hurts China more than it hurts us. In the first Trump administration, prices went up on average about 0.25%. That's 25 cents on a $100 toaster. Today, China knows that they can't really get away with that. I think that Mexico and Canada are threatening counter-retaliatory tariffs on the United States. I don't think Trump will respond to that. I mean, that said, I don't think it's fair, of course, to use tariffs to try to force Canada into becoming the 51st state or something. I think there's a fair argument in Canada that there is a bit of a imposition on Canada in terms of their sovereignty. And I think I think they've got a fair argument there. But at the same time, Canada has not done enough on immigration and definitely not done enough on fentanyl, PRC influence in the country. So these countries all have a lot that they need to do to fix. And what Trump is doing is he's helping them, pushing them in that direction.
Well, we appreciate your insights this early in the morning. Anders Core, thanks for joining.
Thank you.
Is Chinese cyber espionage happening inside hospitals and clinics? Federal agencies are sounding the alarm about a line of China-made patient monitors. Officials say the devices could be remotely controlled by unauthorized users. The CMS 8000 patient monitor is sold by Contact Medical Systems, a company headquartered in China's Hebei province. Designed to track a patient's vital signs, the device is currently used in more than 100 countries. Contact claims its products are approved by the FDA. But according to the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, the device has a rather suspicious function embedded within. Once connected to the internet, the agency says the machine could transmit confidential patients' data to a remote IP address. On top of that, it also enables bad actors to manipulate the device's configuration remotely and compromise it. The FDA and CISA are urging organizations to unplug and remove all Contact CMS 8000 machines if the clinics use the device's remote monitoring features. A former senior advisor for the Federal Reserve has been charged with economic espionage. He allegedly stole trade secrets and lied to authorities during the investigation.
The indictment was unsealed by the Department of Justice today. It alleges John Harold Rogers leaked secret information to Beijing. Rogers was a senior advisor at the Federal Reserve Board of Governors, the body that helps set interest rates for the U.S. Central Bank. The DOJ says that the information Rogers shared with his Chinese counterparts was, quote, economically valuable when secret. Some of that information dealt with tariffs. His counterparts worked with Chinese intelligence and posed as graduate students. U.S. Attorney Edward R. Martin, Jr., who announced the indictment, said, "Let this indictment serve as a warning to all those who seek to betray or exploit the United States. Law enforcement will find you and hold you accountable."
A concession from Panama following Secretary of State Marco Rubio's visit to the country. Panama said it would optimize transit priority for U.S. warships through the key waterway. Adding U.S. Navy vessels will now travel through the canal free of charge. Here's more.
President Trump stated Sunday that China is controlling the Panama Canal.
It was not given to China, that was given to Panama foolishly, but they violated the agreement, and we're going to take it back or something very powerful is going to happen.
Trump also raised concerns about Chinese influence, citing what he estimated to be 70% of signage along the canal written in Chinese.
The most expensive project ever built. We lost $38,000. And what happens? China owns it all of a sudden? It's not going to happen. We're not going to let that happen.
The comments came as Secretary of State Marco Rubio was in Panama on Sunday.
Today, it's one of our strongest economic partners, certainly in the hemisphere, and an important catalyst for so much trade and commerce that happens in the United States.
Rubio warned Panamanian President Jose Raul Molino that Washington will take necessary measures if Panama does not take immediate steps to reduce China's influence and control over the canal. Molino later announced he would not renew Panama's Belt and Road Initiative agreement with China, signed in 2017.
We will study to see if we can end it earlier or not.
Molino also pledged to review agreements involving China and Chinese businesses and announced increased cooperation with the U.S. on migration. However, he reaffirmed Panama's sovereignty over the canal.
The sovereignty of Panama is not in question. That is very important.
Gatestone Institute senior fellow Gordon Chang says Trump's moves on the canal are critical as Chinese companies control ports on each side, speaking on Fox News.
China is now building the fourth bridge over the Panama Canal. Right now, there are just abutments in the water, but in a year and a half from now, there will be steel over the waterway. China can bring that bridge down.
The United States spent over a decade constructing the Panama Canal, which connects the Caribbean Sea to the Pacific Ocean. In 1999, Panama assumed control of the 51-mile-long waterway under a 1977 treaty. The Trump administration accuses Panama of failing to uphold the canal's neutrality, a key requirement of the treaty. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
Coming up, let's pivot to Texas, where Chinese AI and social media apps are getting removed from government-owned devices. The new order outlaws China's Red Note, DeepSeek, and Lemonade, among others, from being installed on them. Tesla's China operation is joining a group of Chinese automakers to sue the European Union. This after the bloc hit the made-in-China EVs with a round of tariffs. And Taiwan banning its government agencies from using Chinese AI chatbot DeepSeek. The island now citing security concerns. More on that after the break here on China in Focus. Welcome back to China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. Governor Greg Abbott is expanding Texas cybersecurity measures by banning Chinese-affiliated AI and social media apps on all state-issued devices. He's also adding the apps to the state's prohibited technology list. The move aims to protect critical infrastructure, personal data, and intellectual property. NTD's Don Ma has more.
The governor of Texas announced a ban on Chinese AI and social media apps. The ban applies to U.S. government-issued devices and includes any such apps affiliated with China or the Chinese Communist Party. The ban aims to prevent potential data harvesting and espionage by the Chinese Communist Party. Governor Greg Abbott emphasized the need to protect critical infrastructure, intellectual property, and personal data. The list of apps banned include China's DeepSeek AI and the Red Note social media platform, among others. The ban comes just a few days after President Donald Trump's nominee for Commerce Secretary said DeepSeek stole data from the U.S.
How could it be more clear than this week when DeepSeek, a Chinese AI, says they were able to create things dirt cheap? How? By leveraging what they've taken from us, stolen from us, or leveraged from us. It's outrageous, and it needs to be addressed.
AI startup DeepSeek has rocked markets after showing to be able to compete with the U.S.'s OpenAI. U.S. users also flocked to Xiaohongshu, known in English as Red Note, in the days leading up to TikTok's short-lived ban. It's a popular app in China and surrounding countries. Lemon8 is another app that was banned. Lemon8 is also a Chinese company owned by ByteDance, the parent company of TikTok. The social media app also gained traction in the days leading up to the original TikTok ban on January 19th. Don Ma, NTD News.
Another update from the auto industry. Tesla's Shanghai operations and BMW are suing the European Commission, along with a growing number of Chinese automakers. They're taking issue with the European Union's new tariffs on electric vehicles. The EU imposed tariffs up to 45% on Chinese-made EVs, accusing China of flooding the market with state-subsidized cheap cars. Tesla's cars face a 7.8% tariff, while BMWs are hit with a 20.7% markup. A BMW spokesperson said the tariffs hurt global companies and limit EV supply in Europe. They're looking to negotiate an agreement. On Monday, a European Commission spokesperson said they are open to finding a solution, but added it needs to tackle the unfair competition identified in the EV market. Next, Taiwan has banned its government agencies from using DeepSeek, a Chinese AI model like ChatGPT, citing security concerns. In a statement issued today, the Taiwanese government said the Chinese AI model poses risks of information leakage and other security concerns. Zooming out, besides Taiwan, countries like Italy, South Korea, France, Belgium, and the United States have all raised concerns about whether the Chinese AI model would leak their users' data to Beijing. Some countries are already preparing a probe against the company's operation. That's all for today's China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. If you have any feedback on the show or have something you'd like to see us cover, send us an email at chinainfocus@ntd.com. We'd love to hear from you. For round-the-clock original news coverage, visit us at ntd.com or download our NTD app. Thanks for watching. See you tomorrow.